What happens when one of the biggest pop stars in the world walks onto a late-night talk show stage expecting a friendly conversation, only to face a barrage of disrespect that leaves the entire studio in shocked silence? It only took one comment, one cruel joke that crossed the line, for everything to explode into the most talked about moment in late-night television history. This is the story of how Britney Spears walked off Jimmy Kimmel's show, and trust me, you need to hear every single detail of what actually went down that night. The stage was set like any other night. The band playing, the audience clapping, the cameras rolling. Britney Spears walked out in a beautiful black dress, waving to the crowd, who erupted in applause. She was there to promote her latest music, to connect with her fans, to have what she thought would be a normal interview. But from the very first moment she sat down, something felt different. Something felt wrong. Jimmy barely let her settle into the chair before he started. No warm welcome, no genuine greeting, just straight into it. So Britney, thanks for coming on the show. I have to say, it's brave of you to be here after everything that's been going on. The audience went quiet. Britney's smile faltered for just a second. She recovered quickly, keeping her composure. Thanks for having me, Jimmy. I'm excited to be here and talk about my new album. But Jimmy wasn't interested in the album. Not yet. Maybe not at all. Yeah, we'll get to that. But first, I think everyone wants to know, how does it feel to be back in the spotlight after, all the drama, the breakdowns, the headlines, the whole circus? The word hung in the air. Circus. He said it with a smirk, like he thought he was being clever, like he thought it was funny. The audience shifted uncomfortably. A few people gasped. Britney's face changed. The smile disappeared completely. I'm sorry, what? The circus, Jimmy repeated, leaning back in his chair like he owned the place. You know what I mean. The whole media circus around you. It's been pretty wild, right? Britney took a breath. You could see her trying to stay calm, trying to be professional. Jimmy, I came here to talk about my music. That's what I'm here for. Right, the music, Jimmy said, waving his hand dismissively. But come on, you have to admit, your personal life has been way more interesting than your music lately. I mean, when was the last time you had a real hit? The audience gasped louder this time. Someone in the front row said, "Oh my God," loud enough for the microphones to catch it. Britney sat up straighter, her jaw tightening. Excuse me? Jimmy laughed. Actually laughed, like this was all some big joke. I'm just saying, people tune in to see what Britney's going to do next, not necessarily to hear what Britney's going to sing next. You've become more of a celebrity than an artist at this point, wouldn't you say? No, I wouldn't. Say that at all, Britney said, her voice getting stronger, firmer. I've been working incredibly hard on this album. I've poured my heart into every song, and I came here thinking we'd have a respectful conversation about it. Oh, come on, don't be so sensitive, Jimmy said, that smirk still plastered on his face. This is late-night television. We have fun here. We joke around. Can't you take a joke? A joke? Britney repeated. You're sitting here insulting my career, my music, my entire life, and you're calling it a joke? The tension in the studio was thick enough to cut. The audience wasn't laughing. The band had gone completely silent. Even the cameramen looked uncomfortable. But Jimmy kept going. Look, Britney, I'm just asking the questions everyone wants to ask. You've made some pretty questionable decisions over the years. The head-shaving thing, the umbrella incident, all of that. People want to know, are you stable enough to even be making music right now? That was it. That was the moment. You could see it in Britney's eyes. The shock, the hurt, the anger. She sat there for a few seconds, just staring at him, like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Are you seriously asking me that right now? On national television? I mean, it's a fair question, Jimmy said, shrugging. Your fans are worried about you. I'm just giving voice to their concerns. No, Britney said, shaking her head. No, you're not. You're exploiting my pain for ratings. You're making fun of the hardest moments of my life for cheap laughs. And you know what? I don't have to sit here and take this. She started to stand up. Jimmy's eyes went wide. He clearly didn't expect this. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Where are you going? We're in the middle of an interview. An interview? Britney said, her voice rising. You call this an interview? You haven't asked me a single genuine question. You haven't shown me an ounce of respect. All you've done is attack me, mock me, and treat me like I'm some kind of joke. Britney, sit down, Jimmy said, and his tone had changed now. He wasn't smirking anymore. He looked nervous. You're being ridiculous. I was just trying to have a conversation. A conversation requires two people treating each other with basic human decency. Britney shot back. And you clearly don't know how to do that. The audience started clapping. Slowly at first, then louder and louder. People were standing up. They were supporting her. And Jimmy looked absolutely panicked. Okay, maybe I came on a little strong, he said, holding up his hands. But you have to understand, this is my show. I set the tone here. And if you can't handle a little bit of tough questioning, maybe you're not ready to be back in the public eye. Wrong thing to say. Completely wrong thing to say. Britney turned to face him fully, and the look on her face was pure steel. Tough questioning? Is that what you think this is? Let me tell you something, Jimmy. I have been through more in my life than you could ever imagine. I have been broken down, built back up, torn apart by the media, and put under a microscope for the world to judge. And I survived it all. I'm still here. I'm still making music. I'm still fighting. So don't you dare stand there and question whether I'm ready for the public eye. The question is, are you ready to face the consequences of treating your guests like garbage? The studio erupted. People were cheering, shouting, applauding. Jimmy looked like he'd been slapped. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I didn't mean... Yes, you did, Britney said. You meant every word. You thought you could tear me down on your show, and I'd just sit there and smile through it. Well, I'm done smiling through disrespect. I'm done letting people like you profit off my pain. She unclipped her microphone and set it down on the chair. Britney, wait, Jimmy said, standing up now too. We can start over. We can talk about the album. That's what you wanted, right? It's too late for that, Britney said. You showed me exactly who you are in the first 5 minutes, and I don't need to waste another second of my time with someone who has so little regard for other people. You're really going to walk off my show? Jimmy asked, and now he sounded angry. Do you know how many people would kill to be in that chair? Then go find one of them, Britney said, because I'm done. She turned to walk off the stage. Jimmy called after her. You're making a huge mistake. This is going to make you look bad, not me. Britney stopped. She turned back around one more time. No, Jimmy. This is going to make you look bad. Because everyone watching this right now just saw exactly how you treat people. They saw you mock someone's mental health struggles. They saw you dismiss someone's artistic work. They saw you try to humiliate a guest on your own show. And they're going to remember that. Not because I walked off, but because you gave me no other choice. The audience went absolutely wild. The applause was deafening. People were on their feet, screaming their support. And Jimmy just stood there, frozen, realizing that he'd lost control of his own show. This is ridiculous, he muttered into his microphone, trying to save face. She can't take a little criticism, and she runs away. Real professional, Britney. But nobody was listening to him anymore. All eyes were on Britney as she walked across the stage, her head held high, her dignity intact. The band started playing, trying to go to commercial, but the audience was too loud. They were chanting her name. Britney! 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 One of the producers ran out onto the stage, trying to talk to Jimmy, probably telling him they needed to cut to commercial immediately. Jimmy was red-faced, angry, embarrassed. He'd thought he was in control. He'd thought he could push her around, make her the butt of his jokes, and she'd just take it, because that's what guests do. They sit there and take it because it's good publicity. But Britney Spears didn't need his publicity. She didn't need his platform. And she definitely didn't need his disrespect. As she reached the edge of the stage, she turned back one final time. The audience quieted down just enough to hear her. To everyone who came here tonight expecting to see me talk about my music, I'm so sorry you didn't get that. I wanted to share it with you. I really did. But I will not compromise my self-respect for anyone. Not anymore. And then she was gone. Disappeared backstage, leaving Jimmy standing there in front of his cameras, his audience, and his complete and utter failure. The cameras cut to commercial, but the damage was done. In those few minutes, everything had changed. Jimmy had walked into that interview thinking he was the king of late night, thinking he could say whatever he wanted, treat his guests however he wanted, and face no consequences. But he was wrong. Let's talk about what led up to that moment, because nothing happens in a vacuum. Britney had agreed to do the show weeks in advance. Her team had sent over talking points, topics she was comfortable discussing, boundaries that needed to be respected. Standard stuff for any celebrity interview, and Jimmy's team had agreed to all of it. But the moment the camera started rolling, all of that went out the window. See, Jimmy had a reputation in Hollywood, a reputation that not everyone knew about, but the people who worked in the industry knew. He had a habit of going off script, of pushing buttons, of trying to create viral moments at his guests' expense. Some people could roll with it. Some people even enjoyed the back and forth. But there was a line, and Jimmy had a tendency to cross it. With Britney, he didn't just cross the line. He sprinted past it. From the very beginning, his questions were designed to provoke, designed to make her uncomfortable, designed to get a reaction. He wanted the headline. He wanted the clip that would go viral. He wanted people talking about his show the next day. And he got it. Just not in the way he expected. Because when Britney stood up and called him out, when she refused to play his game, when she walked off that stage, she didn't just stand up for herself. She stood up for every guest who'd ever been disrespected on a talk show. Every person who'd ever been made to feel small for someone else's entertainment. Every artist who'd been reduced to their worst moments instead of celebrated for their work. That's why the audience went crazy. That's why people were on their feet. Because they'd been waiting for someone to do exactly what Britney did. To say enough is enough. To refuse to be treated like a punching bag. And Jimmy, he tried to spin it. Even as they were going to commercial, you could hear him trying to make jokes, trying to laugh it off, trying to act like it was no big deal. But his voice was shaking. His hands were trembling. He knew he'd messed up. He knew he'd gone too far. When they came back from commercial, he tried to move on like nothing had happened. Brought out his next guest, made some awkward jokes about tough crowds, tried to pretend everything was fine. But everyone in that studio knew better. The energy had completely shifted. The audience was cold. The next guest looked uncomfortable. Even the band seemed off. Because you can't just erase a moment like that. You can't unsay those words. You can't undo that disrespect. Let's go back to the interview itself to really understand just how calculated Jimmy's cruelty was. Because it wasn't random. It wasn't spontaneous. Every question, every comment, every smirk was deliberate. When Britney first sat down, she was warm. She was open. She was ready to engage. She greeted Jimmy with a genuine smile, thanked him for having her, complimented the show. She did everything a good guest is supposed to do. And his response, It's brave of you to be here after everything that's been going on. Think about that. Not, it's great to have you. Not, thanks for coming. Not even a simple, how are you? No, his very first words to her were a veiled insult, a reference to her personal struggles, a way of immediately putting her on the defensive. Britney handled it with grace. She tried to redirect to her album, but Jimmy wouldn't let her. How does it feel to be back in the spotlight after all the drama? Again, not a question about her music. Not a question about her creative process. Not a question about anything she actually came there to discuss. Just another dig at her personal life. And when she tried again to steer the conversation back to her work, he dismissed it entirely. Yeah, we'll get to that. But he never intended to get to it. That was clear from the start. He had his agenda, and her album wasn't part of it. Then came the circus comment, and you could see it in his face. He thought he was being so clever. He thought he'd made this brilliant, witty observation, but all he'd done was show his true colors. Britney gave him a chance to walk it back. I'm sorry, what? A clear signal that he'd crossed a line, an opportunity to apologize, to redirect, to be a decent human being. He doubled down instead. The circus, you know what I mean, the whole media circus around you. Playing dumb, pretending he didn't understand why that word would be hurtful, pretending he hadn't deliberately chosen it to wound her. And then, the knockout punch. When was the last time you had a real hit? That's when you could see Britney's entire demeanor change. Up until that point, she'd been trying to be professional, trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, trying to salvage the interview. But that question, that deliberate attack on her talent, her artistry, her entire career, that was too much. Excuse me? 2 words. That's all she said. But the way she said them, the weight behind them, the absolute disbelief and anger, it spoke volumes. Jimmy's response? He laughed. He actually laughed in her face. I'm just saying, people tune in to see what Britney's going to do next, not necessarily to hear what Britney's going to sing next. Translation: you're a spectacle, not an artist. You're a train wreck, not a musician. You're entertainment, but not because of your talent. And then he went even further. You've become more of a celebrity than an artist at this point. Imagine working your entire life to perfect your craft. Imagine spending countless hours in the studio, writing songs, recording vocals, choreographing dances. Imagine putting your heart and soul into your art. And then imagine someone dismissing all of that, reducing you to nothing more than tabloid fodder. That's what Jimmy did. And he did it with a smile on his face. Britney defended herself. I've been working incredibly hard on this album. I've poured my heart into every song. A simple statement of fact. A reminder that she's an artist with something to offer. A plea for basic respect. Jimmy's response? Oh, come on, don't be so sensitive. This is late night television. We have fun here. We joke around. Can't you take a joke? The oldest trick in the bully's playbook. Say something cruel, then act like the victim is the problem for being hurt by it. Gaslight them into thinking they're overreacting. Make them feel like they're the ones being unreasonable. But Britney wasn't falling for it. A joke? You're sitting here insulting my career, my music, my entire life, and you're calling it a joke? She called it exactly what it was. Not banter, not humor, not playful teasing. Insults, pure and simple. And still, Jimmy didn't back down. He kept pushing. I'm just asking the questions everyone wants to ask. No, he wasn't. He was asking the questions he wanted to ask. The questions that would make good television. The questions that would generate controversy. The questions that would put him in the headlines. And then came the most egregious moment of all, the question that would seal his fate. Are you stable enough to even be making music right now? Stop and think about that for a second. He questioned her mental stability. On live television, in front of millions of people. He took her most vulnerable moments, her most painful struggles, and weaponized them against her. That's not journalism. That's not entertainment. That's cruelty. Britney's reaction was everything. The shock, the hurt, the disbelief. You could see her processing it in real time, trying to understand how someone could be so callous, so cruel, so completely devoid of empathy. Are you seriously asking me that right now? On national television? Jimmy tried to justify it. It's a fair question. Your fans are worried about you. But her fans weren't in that studio asking those questions. Jimmy was. And he wasn't doing it out of concern. He was doing it for ratings. Britney saw right through it. No, you're exploiting my pain for ratings. You're making fun of the hardest moments of my life for cheap laughs. Truth. Plain and simple truth. And Jimmy had no response to that, because he knew she was right. That's when she stood up. That's when she decided enough was enough. That's when she chose herself over the interview, over the publicity, over the obligation to sit there and take abuse with a smile. Jimmy panicked. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Where are you going? We're in the middle of an interview. Like he had any right to ask. Like he had shown her any reason to stay. Like he deserved another second of her time. Britney's response was perfect. You call this an interview? You haven't asked me a single genuine question. She was right. Every single question had been an attack disguised as curiosity. Every single comment had been designed to tear her down, not build her up. Every single moment had been about making himself look good at her expense. And when she pointed that out, when she held up a mirror to his behavior, he got defensive. Britney, sit down. You're being ridiculous. Commanding her, dismissing her feelings, invalidating her very reasonable reaction to his very unreasonable behavior. But Britney wasn't having it. A conversation requires two people treating each other with basic human decency. And you clearly don't know how to do that? The audience erupted because she just articulated what they'd all been feeling, what they'd all been seeing, what they'd all been hoping someone would say. Jimmy tried to backpedal. Okay, maybe I came on a little strong. A little strong. That's how he characterized his systematic destruction of her character. A little strong. But he couldn't help himself. He couldn't just apologize. He had to add, but you have to understand, this is my show. I set the tone here. There it was. The entitlement. The arrogance. The belief that because it was his show, he could treat people however he wanted. That his name on the marquee gave him permission to be cruel. And that's when Britney delivered the speech that would define the entire encounter. Let me tell you something, Jimmy. I have been through more in my life than you could ever imagine. She wasn't exaggerating. She'd been in the spotlight since she was a child. She'd faced scrutiny that would break most people. She'd survived betrayals, breakdowns, and battles that played out in front of the entire world. I have been broken down, built back up, torn apart by the media, and put under a microscope for the world to judge. And I survived it all. Every word dripping with hard-earned wisdom. Every sentence a testament to her strength. I'm still here. I'm still making music. I'm still fighting. A reminder that she wasn't a victim. She was a survivor. She was a fighter. She was someone who refused to be defined by her worst moments. So, don't you dare stand there and question whether I'm ready for the public eye. Taking back her power. Refusing to let him define her narrative. Refusing to let him make her small. The question is, are you ready to face the consequences of treating your guests like garbage? And there it was. The tables turned. The power shifted. The moment where the prey became the predator and the hunter became the hunted. The audience lost their minds. Because they'd just witnessed someone stand up to a bully. They'd just seen someone refuse to be diminished. They'd just watched someone choose dignity over opportunity. Jimmy was speechless. He'd never encountered this before. He'd never had a guest fight back so effectively, so powerfully, so completely. I didn't mean, but he did mean it. And Britney knew it. Yes, you did. You meant every word. Calling him out on his attempt to backtrack. Refusing to let him off the hook. Holding him accountable for his choices. You thought you could tear me down on your show and I'd just sit there and smile through it. Well, I'm done smiling through disrespect. A declaration of independence. A refusal to play by the old rules. A new boundary being set in real time. I'm done letting people like you profit off my pain. The mic drop moment. The line that would be quoted in every article, every recap, every discussion of what happened that night. She unclipped her microphone, set it down, made it clear she was done. Jimmy tried one last time. Britney, wait. We can start over. We can talk about the album. Too little. Too late. You can't unring that bell. You can't unsay those words. You can't undo that damage. It's too late for that. You showed me exactly who you are in the first 5 minutes. Another truth bomb. Because he had shown her. He'd shown everyone. And there was no coming back from that. Jimmy's anger finally broke through. You're really going to walk off my show? Do you know how many people would kill to be in that chair? The entitlement on full display. The belief that he was doing her a favor. That she should be grateful for the opportunity to be insulted on national television. Britney's response was ice cold. Then go find one of them, because I'm done. She walked away. Jimmy kept digging. You're making a huge mistake. This is going to make you look bad, not me. Wrong again, Jimmy. So very wrong. Britney stopped, turned around, delivered the final blow. No, Jimmy, this is going to make you look bad. And then she explained exactly why. She broke down everything he'd done wrong. She held up a mirror to his behavior. She made it impossible for anyone watching to side with him. Because everyone watching this right now just saw exactly how you treat people. They saw you mock someone's mental health struggles. They saw you dismiss someone's artistic work. They saw you try to humiliate a guest on your own show. A perfect summary, a devastating indictment, a moment of absolute clarity. And they're going to remember that. Not because I walked off, but because you gave me no other choice. The audience chanted her name. The studio shook with applause. And Jimmy stood there, alone, defeated, exposed. He tried to save face. This is ridiculous. She can't take a little criticism, and she runs away. Real professional, Britney. But nobody was buying it. Nobody was listening. Nobody cared what he had to say anymore. The producers were scrambling. The cameras were cutting away. The show was falling apart in real time. And Britney? She delivered one final message to the audience. To everyone who came here tonight expecting to see me talk about my music, I'm so sorry you didn't get that. I wanted to share it with you. I really did. But I will not compromise my self-respect for anyone. Not anymore. A promise. A boundary. A new beginning. She walked off that stage with her head held high, leaving behind a host who'd underestimated her, an audience that supported her, and a moment that would be remembered forever. This wasn't just about a talk show interview gone wrong. This was about a woman who'd been pushed too far, who'd decided she deserved better, who'd chosen herself over the expectations of others. This was about standing up to bullies, no matter how powerful they are. This was about refusing to let others profit from your pain. This was about knowing your worth and demanding that others recognize it too. Britney Spears walked into that studio as a guest. She walked out as a hero. And Jimmy Kimmel, he learned a lesson he should have known all along. Respect isn't optional. Kindness isn't weakness. And treating people with dignity isn't just good manners. It's basic human decency. That night, in front of millions of viewers, Britney Spears reminded the world that she's not just a pop star. She's a force. She's a fighter. And she's someone who will not be disrespected, diminished, or defeated. Not anymore. Never again.